Hello, and welcome to Your Sparkly Brand. We're here to inspire and empower female entrepreneurs like you. This podcast is all about delivering no fluff, high value content that helps you grow your business. It doesn't matter if you have no budget and are still DIYing everything on your own. We're giving you the tips, tools, and strategies you need to build a sparkly empire. I'm Lauren Tassi, a copywriter and launch strategist, and I'm here with my co-host, the marketing, branding, and design queen, Megan Gersh. Hi, Megan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing good.
How are you feeling? What was your sparkly moment this week?
So, as you know, we were with a bunch of friends at a music festival this past weekend. I had a total blast. I mean, as somebody who comes from a background in the music industry, it's just so refreshing to be back out there with friends and just listening to some of your favorite DJs play and all of that. So it was great.
Yes, it was a very sparkly weekend. I'm still deep in recovery mode personally, not a lot of sleep when you're sparkling so hard. So my sparkly moment is that yesterday I am so thrilled that I have my own business and I took 2 naps in the middle of the day. There was like a 4:00 nap and a 6:00 nap, and they were both wonderful. So that's what I'm working with this week.
We love making our own schedule.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so today we're back with part 2 of our cold emailing tips. So if you haven't listened to part 1, pause this episode and go listen to that episode, because that is a great jumping off point for what we're going to be talking about today. So once you have done all of the prep work and research around your cold emailing, let's get into what you should actually be including in your cold emails. So like the actual meat of your emails. So first things first, you always want to look for a specific person's email address as opposed to an info style email. Reaching a specific person is going to allow you to customize that email a bit better, as well as you just know that that email will be hitting their specific inbox. I touched on this a little bit before on the previous episode, but making sure that you're finding a specific contact that would be the person that would be hiring you. So I gave the example last time of I was sending out a lot of cold emails around graphic design or marketing. And so a lot of the time when I was trying to find contacts to cold email, I was looking for the marketing director or the communications director, whatever position kind of makes sense to kind of be the hiring person for somebody that would outsource that type of work. That is the type of person that you want to try to get in touch with. Also, you want to pay close attention to your subject lines. So subject lines are so important because ultimately the subject line will essentially make or break whether your email gets opened or not. You want to strive to create curiosity with your subject lines. You can also try personalizing it by including their name in the subject line, but generally you want to keep it short and snappy. Another tip would be to try to make it look like it's coming from a friend. So being very conversational and casual about it.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking just as you were speaking to who we should send our emails to, I know I used to get kind of hung up on it a little bit, oh, is it the marketing person? Is it the e-commerce person? If you've got a great cold email and you can really help this business, they'll forward it to the right person. And I would say, don't let that paralyze you. Don't let that stop you from emailing someone. It's also, some businesses are they're all structured differently, right? There are a lot of times that I've worked with an e-commerce director, if it's product descriptions, but if it's emails, you're working with somebody else. So just don't get hung up on that. If you find somebody you're I think this could be right, just do it. Get that cold email out there. Don't let it hold you back. Okay, so let's talk about the actual emails. The number one most important thing is that you don't want to just copy and paste emails. We all get terrible cold emails all the time that clearly it's just a name has been filled in. They're not personalized at all. It's just somebody is just blasting out emails. Those never get written. They're always deleted, and they're most likely ending up in their spam inbox anyway. They're never going to see it. So you want to set up a template or some sort of system that works for you. You're obviously not going to start each cold email from scratch. That's not going to be efficient, but finding the balance between what's a good template for you and your business, where you can personalize things versus what sort of works every single time. The number one point you want to do is make it about them and not about you. I feel like this is one of those things we always talk about, but even though you're the copywriter, right? You want to say, I've worked with these these clients. I've done this. That's not what we're trying to say. What you're saying is my clients have done this. My work has helped my clients do this. And there's a way to sort of twist it and turn it where it becomes about the clients and about the results and not about you as the copywriter or you as the graphic designer. And I'm going to share sort of a formula that I've used in a lot of my cold emails a little bit later on, and I can kind of show you how that works. Another thing that's really important is to show that you understand their business. This, again, when you get those copy and pasted cold emails, there's no personalization. There's no understanding that, oh, hey, I've looked at your Instagram. I see what you're doing. I see what you're promoting right now. That personalization makes such a difference. The last time I was doing cold emailing, I kind of cut this part out of my cold email, but when you're starting out, this can be really valuable and it shows your worth, even if you're sort of a newbie, is to offer something, whether that's like free advice right there in your cold email, some sort of free guide, like a downloadable PDF they can share with their audience. You could do, I've seen a lot of people do like a quick Loom video review, like a walkthrough of their website, giving that free advice because you can give a lot more faster in a video versus typing it out. So something to sort of think about, like, how can you most help someone? Because if you're helping them in your cold email, you've already won, right? You've already like proved your worth. And the important thing there is to remember not to send attachments. You just want to use links, like any sort of like link to a downloadable PDF, link to a video, because any sort of attachment is nobody's gonna want to click on it, and you're probably gonna get sent to spam. Okay, so let's talk about a formula. You always want to be improving and adjusting whatever sort of template you set up. I would love to know how many versions of my template I went through in like the basically year or so I spent really intensely cold emailing. But you just want to see, like, maybe this sentence doesn't feel like me anymore, or maybe I finally figured out a better way to say this, or this question gets a lot of response. So just always be playing with it, always be adjusting your template. Okay, so the formula I'm about to share, if you're interested in seeing it sort of in action, I will link to a cold email I sent to like the CEO of a major grocery chain. He literally responded 20 minutes later. I think this is sort of like the best formula I came up with for myself as a copywriter. I think like if you're doing something totally different, it might not work, but just seeing one in action, something that gets a response, can be super helpful. Step number one in the formula is to start with a sentence or two that shows you know the brand. You could compliment them on their latest campaign or gush about how much you love their product. Flattery is never a bad thing here. You don't just want to be like, oh, I love it, blah, blah, blah. Again, get personal. In this email, you'll see I sent it like April of 2020. So it was like a month into the pandemic, and it was about how I can always find toilet paper at their store. And he loved it. That was a story. If you could tell, again, a short story. This is like 2-3 sentences. You don't want the whole cold email needs to be short and to the point. So after you've sort of got their attention, that's kind of your hook part of it. You want to briefly introduce yourself in a sentence or two. And again, you don't want to start with, I'm Lauren, I am a copywriter. I suggest you don't start any paragraph with the word I. You can always sort of add modifier word like firstly, I want to introduce myself. Briefly, I want to introduce myself. I sort of like, people just automatically tune out when you start talking about yourself because people want to hear about them. They don't want to hear about me. So in a sentence or two, briefly introduce yourself. And again, be confident in your expertise. When you go look at the email I wrote, I'm like literally like, oh, I'm a copywriting queen. I do this. I do this. Even if you're not feeling that confident, put it in the words, and maybe you can start to own that confidence as you put it out there. Again, each of these for me is a paragraph, and they're short paragraphs, 2-3 sentences maximum. The next thing you want to do is briefly explain what you do and how you help your clients. This is about results, right? So I think in this email, I talk about getting your pages ranking on SEO, getting your blogs ranking at the top of Google, right? It's like, that's a result. Nobody wants blogs, right? Nobody wants to do content marketing. They want results. They want to be at the top of Google. They want free traffic. So you can see how I said that in that email. Again, it's not about you. It's about how you can help them. So in number 4, this would be a great place to share a bit of advice or your freebie. Again, it has to be relevant to what you're talking about, to your industry. You could also share numbers here, right? I get 90% of my pages ranking at the top of Google, or my open rates are blah, blah, blah. Just again, some sort of information. You could say, oh, I noticed your blogs aren't ranking on SEO. Are you working with, somebody to do this? This is again, where you can offer specific advice to help the brand you're emailing. And then the most important part is to end with a CTA, because a great cold email that doesn't lead anyone further down a conversation isn't going to help you get a client. So mine's always like, let's hop on a call. Another thing could be click here to view samples, right? If you're not quite ready, depending on your journey, it could just be that you want to lead them to your website, and that's okay. And another thing I've seen work really effectively is to ask a question that they're going to want to answer, right? To just start that conversation. How can I help you do this? What else do you need help with? All sorts of ways to keep the conversation going. So again, if you want to see a straight up sample of this formula in action, go to the show notes notes and you will see a successful cold email that I used in the past.
Yeah. And I think that this formula is awesome because it essentially embodies like, this is essentially like the first contact that you're having with somebody that you do not know. Like you are reaching out to a stranger. And just imagine if this was like in real life, like if you were to walk up to somebody on the street, you would not go into a deep dive on some kind of like how to rank your blog post on the first page of Google. Like, no, you would basically introduce yourself, present the solution and say like, hey, do you want to chat any more about this? And that's like basically like the first meeting point. So, I always try to think about that, about like meeting people kind of where they are, like when you are doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You want this email to land in the right person's inbox and them to go, this is my problem. Someone here can solve my problem. My blogs aren't ranking. I need a new logo. Whatever thing they're thinking about right now, you want them to go, aha, that's it. Let me respond to this person.
Exactly. Yeah. And so once you send your first email, it's super important that we talk also about follow-ups from that first email, because this is essentially probably where you're going to get the bulk of your responses. So figure out a follow-up schedule that works for you. I usually recommend anywhere from 3 to 7 follow-ups. I've seen some coaches recommend up to 10 follow-ups, which seems like a lot for me, but I mean, everybody's different. Feel out what works for you. Make sure that every time that you follow up, you're providing even more value with every single follow-up. You're not just checking in to see like, hey, did you get my last email? But you're actually adding something to the conversation and like kind of building on your last message. You also want to make sure that you're not putting that person on the spot, not saying anything like, I'm sure you're busy, and just being empathetic to the situation. Like, obviously, this is you reaching out to a stranger. You don't want to try to push them. This is already kind of like an awkward kind of situation, you just coming into their inbox. So
yeah, I think the busyness thing too is a pain point they're all dealing with, right? Like I always have like, I know you've got a lot on your plate, which is why I can help you do this. I can help save you time, do this, right? Because time is such a huge thing for anybody who's in business, saving time. And that's what you're going to do as a freelancer, as a contractor. In terms of like keeping the conversation going, right? It can feel kind of, you're like literally talking to no one basically, but even if you like see something, maybe they said something on Twitter that you saw and you thought, hey, this is great. Again, this is continuing to establish that you know them, that you're paying attention to their brand. Maybe you saw an article that's relevant, like the toilet paper situation. Oh, here's an article about how hard it is to keep toilet paper in stock. So I really appreciate what you've done. Just keeping that conversation going in a way that offers value instead of just, hey, hello, I'm here, please respond.
Yeah, exactly. So the important thing to keep in mind is that cold emailing is a great strategy for when you're just starting your business. I wouldn't really consider it to be kind of a long-term strategy. It is a lot of hard work to gather those emails, to personalize everything, and to keep track of, what contacts have received which email. But it is a great way to get your business and your name in front of new people. Keep in mind that even if they don't need your services right now, right away, that they may need them down the line. And so the more keywords that you can include in your subject lines, in the body of your email itself, there may be a point down the line where that person winds up searching their email and needing a copywriter or something like that. So it's a numbers game. It ultimately is a numbers game. The more emails you send, the more likely you are to get responses.
And as you start cold emailing, you will build your confidence in cold emailing. And as you build your confidence cold emailing, you will become more confident in your business and what you do. It's the same thing when it comes to discovery calls. And maybe we should do an episode on that, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, just because that can, like, your first one is going to be awful and you're going to feel terrible afterwards. And you're going to think you have no idea what you're talking about. But as you do it more, you become more confident in your business and what you do. And you realize that people actually want your help. So if it seems terrifying right now, just keep doing it. It will get easier and you probably don't have to do it forever. All right. So that's our 2 episodes on cold emailing. It doesn't have to be scary. It's one of the best ways you can grow your business. You just have to be strategic about it. You have to manage your time and pay attention to your numbers and personalize your cold emails. You got this. You can do it. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love if you left us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, stay sparkly.